James!
What's up? How's it going?
Hey! I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I am switching camera angles. Give me one
Okay,
second.
all right.
How have you been?
I'm good. I cannot complain despite everything that's been going on for the past year. How about you?
I'm pretty good too. I got no complaints either. Like it's been a little crazy. I'm sure
You've
just
been
like everybody
moving.
else. Yeah, but it's but all good. I mean, I'm blessed. I can't complain. I see you've been doing things and making things happen since we last saw each other.
Oh, yeah. I think the last time I was thinking about this, the last time I saw you, we were probably in New York for
Mhm.
the Spotify event.
Oh, yep.
That was
I
it.
think that was it. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I think we were passing each other on the elevator in the hotel.
Yep.
I was going, you were coming, or something. I
But
don't
I've
know.
seen your kind of like rise and what you're doing from an influencer. I've been admiring from afar and really seeing the growth. So I'm really proud to see kind of like how you've elevated. It's dope.
Well, I appreciate that. That's cool. I don't really consider myself an influencer, but I do whatever it takes to keep the business going.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm about to say no, it's been good. It's been good. I think the content you create is dope. So kudos.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Everybody, I'm so excited to have a friend of mine that I haven't seen in some years. He's been rocking it, y'all. And he has been moving and shaking in the media and marketing world. I'm talking about James Cuthbert. And he is with me from LL Cool J's Rock the Bells. Have you heard of it? Hey, James.
Hey, Michelle, how's it going? It's a pleasure. It's been too long. I hope all is well with you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Everything's great. We've managed through this whole COVID, wretched leadership. You name it, Wow, civil rights movement, all of that good stuff. Made it through all of that. But you know what? The last time I saw you, I believe we were in New York for a speaking opportunity at Spotify. Is that right?
Yeah. It was at Spotify. I think it was through with brand innovators at the time. We're speaking
Yeah.
at Spotify speaking on culture and kind of it's it's funny because it's been kind of a whirlwind since then. But it was such a great experience, and it was always a pleasure, kind of like seeing you and kind of seeing you on stage and shining and commanding the crowd and helping people. So I've seen this grow. I've just been incredibly inspired by
Well,
what you're
thank
doing.
you so much. It's a lot coming from you because I knew whenever James hit the stage, he was going to turn it out, especially when it came to the idea of culture. I felt like we were like twins in the culture space, brothers and sisters that just holding up that torch.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just if you think about like the entire world moves on culture, and the entire culture of the world is really just spurned out of hip hop culture,
Yeah,
which comes from Black people,
absolutely.
brown people, um,
Yes.
and kind of like it's just crazy how a culture created when folks feel like they didn't necessarily have a voice could blow up into what it is today, which is literally global popular culture.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Recently I've been talking a lot about how you add culture to anything and it scales, especially when we're talking about brands and marketing and also technology. And so trying to get some of these companies to look at bringing more women of color into the mix.
Mhm.
And I tell the story of Sylvia Robinson. And a lot of folks don't understand or know that she was so instrumental in getting
Sugar
rap
Hill.
commercialized. Like,
Hmm.
that's the Sugar Hill Gang, right?
Hmm.
And I know
Yeah.
you're a hip hop head, old school hip hop head, just like me.
Oh, I mean that story is outstanding. That whole family has a legacy that like literally lifted up and helped commercialize and bring forth the culture in an amazing way. So
Yeah.
it's outstanding.
Yeah. So, James, what do you think we have a culture soup moment?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. So, there is absolutely no way to get on social media anywhere, especially like TikTok, where they're using music to push the culture forward.
Hmm.
But anywhere you look, folks are talking about music and how it is driving the culture. In fact, the Grammys just happened the other night, and you have to be under a rock not to see Meg the Stallion and Beyonce. She made what, 28th, her 28th Grammy? It's crazy. Blue Ivy got her first one, but we are reminded every day of how hip hop is core to our culture here in the US and around the world. You agree?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 1,000%. If you think about it, like when I think about hip hop culture, you can't speak about hip hop culture without this idea of giving a voice to the voiceless.
Yeah.
Remember that? I mean, it's hard to imagine now for some folks, but there was a time when like not even Michael Jackson could get on
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah.
We're like, we're literally like, some of the biggest artists, and then no one would play rap music.
Yeah.
Radio stations wouldn't play it. There was maybe one or two outlets, period. And then, but like, this idea of like, I have a voice, I have something to say, I'm going to be unapologetic in expressing my truth. I'm not going to let anything get in my way. Like, these are the ideals of like the young generations of the world.
Yeah.
So hip hop was just, when I think about hip hop culture, like it's spurred out of this idea of, from a developmental standpoint, I'm coming into my own when I'm a teenager, and as I'm becoming a young adult, and I'm finding my voice and seeing people like living their truth,
Yeah.
completely unfettered by anything else. And I'm just going to give you raw truth. Like, it was an inspiration, and it still is today.
That is so awesome. It's great insight. And, speaking of the whole Sylvia Robinson thing and watching disco give way to hip hop and actually remembering some of the first hip hop songs that sample from disco. But this was
Mhm.
it was a result of kids not being able to get into the Studio 54s of the world, right? Because they couldn't afford the garb, they couldn't afford to get in, let alone have the clout. And then on top of that, I mean, even Nile Rodgers had a problem getting into some of these clubs, especially Studio 54, with an invitation from Grace Jones still.
Yeah.
But they had to go back into their warehouses and do something. And this is where hip hop was born, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, and you think about it, just this idea. Think about hip hop culture, and you think about any culture, over the course of time. You really go back. You have culture has their language.
Yeah.
Hip hop has a language. Culture has their dance.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop has break. Culture has their storytelling. They have the MC.
Yeah.
Culture has their celebration. Think about the DJ.
And you sound like a
Culture has
preacher
their
right
art.
now.
Think about
Call
they
and
have their
response.
artwork, and you have graffiti art that
Yeah.
kind of like has grown up, and Basquiat had the top selling piece of art, in all of North America.
Mm-hmm.
All the elements that go into hip hop are just the same elements that go into any culture.
Yes.
And I think it just took time for the world to realize, like, okay, this is a real culture. These are really authentic voices that matter. And they're very innovative, and they're progressively pushing the culture forward.
Y'all, don't you see why this is my brother in culture? Because we speak the same language. I am like encouraged and inspired to spit out that one line that I did in so many of my speeches. Culture's that thing that makes your squad a squad.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like, if you think about like even how you communicate, the offhand, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, and just leveraging, whether it's leveraging an emoji or leveraging kind of like an icon, or finding pictures that kind of like live within culture. Like, man, it's that connective tissue that allows you to be your authentic self. It's what allows you to connect to friends and networks, especially at times like these, where people have kind of been stuck inside, and I can't go hang out with a big group of my friends. Like, those messages and those colloquialisms are kind of like what reminds me of like that I still have my network, and they're still standing by me.
Absolutely. So, y'all, can you see this, right? I'm asked by this group of people that I didn't even know who they were in the beginning, brand innovators, to join them after hearing me at AT&T headquarters in New York at some ad agency. And then, like, from then on, it's like 8 different stops. And along the way, I ran into this brother on the stage who was spitting about culture and hip hop in ways that I was like, okay, we are like kindred spirits. Like, what is going on here? And at the time, you were with Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah, yeah. At that time, I was with Coke. It was it's funny because when I think about kind of my career trajectory, man, I started out my career in nonprofit working with kids in crisis,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a big part of kind of my past. But then that job where I took a job actually on Sprite, funny, just quick story behind that. So I was literally working at Kellogg's at the time. I was
Yeah.
in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which I'm sure my wife was loving. That
I went out there once with brand innovators, never again.
yeah,
No offense to the cereal
shout
folks.
out,
Love
shout out to
y'all.
the Calamazonians, I guess it is, but like, it still just wasn't for us. But like, it loved my time there at Kellogg's, was doing great work, but like, I had an opportunity to take this position on Sprite,
Yeah.
a brand that played in hip hop, and also like to run their music marketing, to
Mm-hmm.
run their innovation. I talked to my wife. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our second kid. It was in the middle of winter, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I got this opportunity in Atlanta." She was like, "I could grab a box." We drove, so we drove because we couldn't
Who's
fly.
pregnant?
She was 9 months, so we couldn't fly, so we drove from Kalamazoo. We packed up all our stuff.
Wow.
We drove all the way, and then 5 days later, we get down to Atlanta and then Snowmageddon.
Oh, what year
Remember
was
when
this?
remember this? This is like 2014.
Yeah, yeah.
They got the inch of snow in the entire city, so that was like my first week there. But fast forward, and this was the first job where I actually got to see that, like, man, you can do marketing with with a big M, which Kim Page, one of my mentors and one of the smartest women in marketing in the world, would tell me, James, you got to market with a big M.
Yeah.
Marketing that meaningful, that matters, and moves cases. And you can even add on to that it moves culture. And I think that was the first time where I was actually able to say, let's grab culture, let's grab this product, let's think about hip hop culture in a unique and different way, and then express it in the marketplace and see the results.
Yeah. So when I met you, you're working at Sprite. You turned that brand around. I know you probably want to be humble about it, but talk to us about what you had to do to get Sprite back on the scene.
Yeah, it was interesting. So there's this gentleman, Daryl Cobbin, which is probably one of the top preeminent brand positioning folks. He has a company, Brand Positioning Doctors, on the planet. And he launched and kind of helped create Obey Your Thirst in 1994. So he repositioned the brand from kind of like, I like the Sprite in you,
yeah,
to this idea of like, no, there's this idea of obeying your thirst and being true to yourself. And like, we're going to partner with the kind of the underground part of hip hop culture and kind of like stick to the roots. So they had a ton of success. Somewhere between, the end of the Voltron campaigns and some of the things Sprite did, they kind of lost their way. And they said, well, maybe it isn't culture. Maybe it's this idea of extreme thirst or like extreme flavor, and kind of like they started going in this different direction. And when I got to the brand, what I saw the problem was there was an opportunity to authentically connect back to culture. So, we did a deep dive, and as we dug in, we said, man, Sprite has kind of like this idea of it's being true to yourself and finding your voice. So I was like, man, how can we connect our, Sprite, the brand, with culture in an authentic way? And we said, man, and I'd worked at General Mills and I know they had Wheaties. I was like, man, what if we could create the Wheaties box of soft drinks?
Yeah.
What if we could have creators leverage their voice to speak out our brand positioning, this idea of being true to yourself? So we said, man, what if we put rap lyrics that all laddered up to this idea of being true to yourself, or obeying your thirst, on the cans, and we typed within this area of hip hop, which I call progressively conscious hip hop, where people who are progressively trying to push the culture forward. So then we pair somebody like a Drake and a Rakim, and a Nas and a Biggie to spark these intergenerational conversations across culture. I call it barbershop chatter. Overall, and then once you tap into these existing conversations and you put it in the marketplace and you show that you understand and you appreciate the culture in an authentic way, we were able to be incredibly successful and saw more than double-digit velocity gains across in the convenience store, which is where they make most of their money.
And it was powerful. Everybody wanted to get their hands on the cans just to see who was on there and what lyrics were on there. It was amazing. But that's not where you stopped. Next thing I know, I'm looking up and you're at B.E.T.
Well, so the next stop was Red Bull.
That's right, Red Bull. I keep skipping Red Bull. So sorry.
No worries. Yeah, well, don't worry. I just had one just now. So then I went to Red Bull for about a year. I loved my time there as well. So like what I learned at Red Bull, at Coke, I learned about traditional branding. I learned the fact that culture works. The fact that actually sparking conversations between generations within culture would work. At Red Bull, I really learned about this idea of doing a branded event in a very authentic way. So you think Red Bull has had over 100, sponsored influencers within their network. And Red Bull just has this idea of like creating what I call low barrier moments where you step into a brand's world. You go to like the world of Red Bull, you go to like a Red Bull event, and you're stepping into their world. And I really learned how to authentically leverage culture and how to structure a company in a way that would be primed to do that. So they had a culture expert. They had like one in every single kind of like major city or major metropolis area. They had someone whose job was to know and live and breathe the culture.
Wow.
That's why Red Bull always seems to kind of like be on the tip of the spear and understanding what's happening in the community because they structured that way. And that was an incredibly great experience for me. I loved it.
That's amazing. A culture guru in every city. That's something, because you know what? There are like micro cultures, like beneath cultures, and the fact that they were thinking that way is really innovative.
Oh yeah, and I think that's this idea of like culture happens on the ground. Like there's macro kind of like insights and things that happen across, but when you gloss over it, you miss the fact that folks in the South are different than the North.
Right.
And when you go in the North, Boston's not the same as New York City. And
Right.
you go in the boroughs, Queens is not the same as the Bronx.
And
And you
go
go
to
in
the
the West,
Bay, and it's
and you
different
go to the
too.
Bay. And sometimes even then you go within communities, and the east side of that community might be different than the west. Culture is global and local at the same time.
Yeah.
And the more you can understand the nuances, the better you can speak to people in authentic ways.
Yeah, you said a lot there. And I can see some of the thread of the needle that's going to lead us to Rock the Bells, but when we're stopped, BET,
Yeah,
right?
so we're still on this kind of this adventure and this train, and then so after that, I had an opportunity to go to BET and work for one of my mentors. She actually the person who hired me at Coca-Cola, which was Kim Page. Again, probably one of the top 2 or 3 marketers on the planet. Like, she's just amazing. And there's this history in my career of amazing women who've helped lift me up on my journey. So before I even go there, I mean, like Kim Page, Raquel Mason at Coca-Cola, who literally helped me get my promotions and helped me along my journey.
Awesome.
There's just been, there's just been a legacy, you could say.
Yeah.
Of like literally and I'll go back before I go forward just a little bit is and when I was working even at Kellogg's, had my one manager at the time, Nicole, who was the first person to ever really challenged me. And I was like, well, I need some help with this project. She was like, no, you're smart enough to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You got this. And instilled that kind of belief inside me.
Good.
Not to go all the way back to my internship to kind of another Kim who kind of gave me my first internship job overall. So there's been these powerful women, and oftentimes women of color, who have kind of lifted me up and kind of helped me on my way.
That's fantastic.
In the corporate world. So one, just shout out to all the people who kind of been part of my journey. But now we'll go all the way back to BET.
Sure.
So,
okay.
So literally, just quickly. So Kim was like, hey, I got this role at BET and looking for somebody to kind of come in and, on the marketing side and kind of be my number one. She was like, are you interested? And I just sent her a little emoji of a suitcase. when we start. Not because I was interested in leaving my job, but because of what she meant from a mentoring standpoint.
Yeah.
At the time I was trying to move to New York City. Moved to New York City, and then temporarily I was flying back from there to my hometown in Atlanta, where I'm now in Atlanta. I'm from Rochester, New York. But literally, then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then I ended up at home. So while I was at BT, I loved my time there. Got to do some really impactful work, some really cool brand work. Really kind of focusing the brand on this idea of advancing Black love, joy, power, and pride. Kind of doing some really cool marketing initiatives with the BET Awards and some really cool stuff, and an amazing team.
Yeah.
And I give a lot of kudos to. And to be honest, one of the first times in my career, I got to work with almost all people of color.
That's awesome.
Which was just which is an experience that not everyone gets to do.
No, you really don't.
And it was a blessing. And it was an outstanding company, and kind of leadership, top to bottom, was top notch. And I would still be there today had not I got a call from a friend of mine who I also knew at Coke, who currently this again amazing women who kind of helped me on my journey. Was like, hey James, she used to work at Coke.
Yeah.
She was like, do you want to interview with LL Cool J?
Okay, stop for a second. You know what? There's a point here to be made. You mentioned Kim Page. You mentioned some other fantastic women. Now you're talking about another woman that is introducing you to LL Cool J. There are people in your career trajectory, in your life, that no matter what your situation is, even if it's excellent and on point, that you will stop and not just listen, but you'll move. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like to me that has happened to you in a few different situations. I'm like that too. I'm happy where I am right now, but there is a short list of people who call me. If they call me and say, I need you, I'm like, where? What can I do? And it sounds like that's kind of the case here.
Well, but I mean, not only is it the case, but it's it's funny because I have this pedagogy that I follow, right? And it's kind of my theory. I call it this idea of being a beast. Right. Mm-hmm. Not a beast in an archaic way, or kind of it's actually taking that and kind of flipping it on its head. So what it stands for is the B stands for understanding your brand identity, who you are.
Okay.
What do you stand for? Then you go to the E stands for being ethically rooted. How do you treat people? Are you kind of clawing your way to the top, or thinking that you have to pretend you are somebody or you aren't?
Wow.
Or can you treat people? then the A, the A stands for all in. Like,
Yeah.
what time do you wake up in the morning? Are you saying there's not enough time, but like, how are you spending your time?
Right.
Oh, how's Kevin Hart spending his time? How's The Rock spending their time? How would like the people who are high performers in their field maximize their time? So you're all
Right.
in. Then S stands for this idea of being single-minded.
Mm.
What's interesting is I had actually my pastor in my church actually mentioned this when he said got to be single-minded, and you're kind of like, hold on, what? Single-minded? But single-minded really stands for this idea of like, once you know your truth, are you willing to stand on it?
Yes. And
Can
you're
you
focused on it, and you're zeroed in on it. And
100%?
that's the end of that. It's your purpose.
And
Right.
that's it. And it's like, once you kind of define it, and then the last one is T is your testimony.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered? And I say all that to say, like, it's the how that I treated people on my journey, which is the reason why people are willing to pick up the phone. Is because I've always, I've always taken heart to treat people, everyone the same.
Yeah.
Everyone with respect. And the way I lead is the same way. I don't yell at people or scream at people or lead with fear. I lead with faith and belief in people and what's possible. And I believe, and I got this from Amy, who was the CMO, the other person who's helped me on my journey was the CMO at Red Bull at the time.
Yeah.
Who says to me, and I remember she was like, James, you have to treat people the way you want them to behave.
Yes. You know what? You're having church up in here today. That's a whole culture too. But seriously, you're having church right now. That's a word.
But that's again, but that's how, these things, all these opportunities that happen because of the way you treat people as you ascend and as you move.
Yes.
There's a reason why we're talking.
Right.
We're talking because like I've always I enjoyed our conversations. I see what you do in the community. I see kind of like your movement. And that, I'm not always easy to get a hold of, but like that makes me want to do this.
Well, absolutely. And that made me want to chase you down. So we met in the middle, right? So then you get this call from Coke, or former person from Coke that you worked with. And she says, you want to talk to LL? Like, tell us more about this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, it's interesting. It's like, hey, there's this opportunity, this opportunity called, Rock the Bells. And I'm like, all right, well, tell me more. And, I talked to my wife about it a little bit, and I'm like, well, there's this opportunity. I'm like, I'm probably good, but I want to find out more. But as I dove in and I found out more, I fell in love with what they were trying to accomplish. This idea of like, how can you elevate classic hip hop through a modern lens?
The old and new again.
Yeah, it's like it's tapping, and this is kind of like how when you do things the right way, it's like doors. You can't keep the doors closed; they start popping open.
Mm-hmm.
It taps into what I learned when I was on Sprite. I was like, man, if you can spark conversations between generations,
there you go.
You have people who are like, there's a lot of ageism that happens in culture, overall, but especially within hip hop music overall. But if you can like spark a conversation where you get people to talk to each other as people, imagine how powerful you can be. Like, there's a reason why the Avenger movies do better than the other movies, than the individual movies. It's because you have the culture united. Yeah. And when people are united, they're undefeated.
You know what? I got to say something about that. The first time I saw somebody bridge a gap in hip hop in that way, I was literally at South by Southwest. I had been invited down by Rev Run, and he was DJing with, why can't I think of the guy's name? Ruckus, DJ Ruckus. Okay. And they have a DJ set that they do together. Now, Ruckus is young. He's probably at the cusp of Gen Z, maybe millennial. I think he's Gen Z. But literally, seeing those two work together, it was magical. First of all, the party was dope. It was great. And then on top of that, they were blending the new music with the old music from the past, and then even sometimes crossing the genres. How in the world would you even believe that they would have Sweet Home Alabama playing in their mix? And that place was jumping. They were mixing it with Lil Jon and some other stuff too. It was crazy. But you're right. When you bring those two things or multiple things together, again, it scales, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and so add on to that, like when the creative community comes together with kind of like with no ageism, with kind of like with nothing but good intentions of kind of like elevating and working together, you can form this unbreakable bond within the community that allows you to really elevate and push forward in impactful ways. And I think oftentimes there's a million things that can be put in place to keep us apart. There's like, well, what about this and this person makes this money, or they like this type of music, or I'm like this, or I look like this, or this is sexual. Like, there's all these things that can kind of like divide us.
Yeah.
But when we pull those apart and you force people to actually sit next to each other
Yeah.
and actually have an open dialogue and a conversation, that stuff starts to fade away, it starts to break down. You start to put a face on this younger generation or on
Yeah.
the older generation, and then the magic starts to happen.
This is why I think culture is, and I've always, this is part of the thing. Culture is key to breaking down so many different like barriers, because when you're even speaking about faith, that cuts across all sorts of people,
Mm-hmm.
age, race, whatever. We found our common denominator. Hip hop, music. It cuts across so many people globally, and it's a thing we can agree on and can enjoy together. And I just really believe sports, music, faith, all of these things are the key to getting folks to unite.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's like, yeah, I think Obama used to say this. Like, it's funny because, for myself, being somebody who's biracial, right? So my mom is white, my dad is black. My dad's from Trinidad, my mom was raised on a farm, like country
Yeah.
farm. But like, what's interesting, he would say is this idea of like when you actually get down and talk to people face to face,
Yep.
when you strip away the like, oh, I watch, this news channel, or I watch this news channel, or I believe in this, or I believe in this. When you actually get humans together,
Yeah.
most of the time, like people have a good heart and they have a good spirit.
Right.
And I think that's where there's this opportunity for connection. But unfortunately, in times like these, when people are like forced apart, even more so by
Yeah.
things like COVID and kind of like all that, all that's been happening in the world. Oftentimes, people make their minds up and they fall victim to confirmation bias of just kind of being fed and kind of seeing what they want or what they
Yeah.
might believe is true. And then they kind of go down this rabbit hole as opposed to talking as people. You find those kind of mutually things that you have in common. You can actually progress and push things forward.
I love something, and we're going to get back to LL. We're not going to
Yep.
forget him. But there was something the president said today in the news that I thought was spot on. And it kind of gets to influencer marketing, if you will. And
Yep.
he said, there are people out there that did not vote for me that really like the last president, and, that's their right. But we really need to unite this country in order to move forward through COVID-19. So I'm going to depend on the preachers, the ministers, the doctors, the people in the community who really have an influence over everyone, not just one party or the other, to really communicate this. And I was like, you know what? This man gets it. And he didn't have a big head to think it's got to be me. He understood that he needed to pass that buck on to somebody who had better influence, which I was like, wow, that's how we actually market as big brands too. We're not always the cool kids, and you need to send somebody in there who knows the people, right?
Well, 100%. So I think that's oftentimes why, even the role of multicultural marketing within broader companies is so important, because you need to have some people that are kind of like, that are connected to kind of culture and what's happening. But you touch on something else, is like, again, culture starts small.
Yeah.
And grows up to be big. And culture has so many nuances and wrinkles. So like the idea of like that, that one person or one point of view is pervasive is usually false, because everyone there's wrinkles and details
Yeah.
and differences that kind of exist there. But I love that idea of empowering the local community to kind of like to be the force of actually bringing people together. That's powerful.
Yeah. Okay, so you get this call, and she's
Yes.
like, LL's got a gig.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of surreal. Then we had some conversations and kind of went through all of that. But like like I said, I fell in love with the problem, this idea of elevating classic hip hop through this modern lens. I fell in love with this. I've been in love with hip hop since I was a kid, right? Since the Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul,
Yeah,
LP,
yeah. That's
and like the late 80s, I've
my
been
era.
listening, taking my brother's tapes out of his rooms, his cassette tapes, and
Yeah.
and kind of like lived and breathed the culture. But as I really started to unpack this opportunity, it was this idea of like, man, I've done some of this work naturally. I've done some of that brand. I've done some of that internal work. When I said the idea of like what a beast is to me, that brand identity is usually uncovered by really tapping into three questions. What are my God-given talents?
Yes.
What have I spent at least 10,000 hours doing?
Mm-hmm.
And what am I really good at?
Oh, you know what? You just broke down my paradigm for finding your purpose and your value.
Yes.
And yeah, this is all about your passions. Those three things that you would just like get up from your grave and do anyway. And then your superpowers.
I
Those
love
things,
that.
if they threw you in the ocean, with balls and chains around your ankles, blindfolded, you could still do that stuff.
I love that. No, I love that. That's really sharp, and I love the way you put it because when I went through that, I ended up with three things that became the filters for my life,
Yeah.
which is brands, culture, cause.
Yes. Tech, culture,
So
and business.
yeah, see, I mean, but like, so think brands, like okay, culture, hip hop culture in
Yes.
specific, and then community advocacy. And then when I thought about this business and I thought about who I am and what I stand for, I'm like, man, I found a place where I belong.
Yeah. It's
Um,
organic to you. It's organic to your story. And it's single minded, right? So
mhm.
you stay on that course, and everything that you do, in fact, that's what attracts the opportunities. And you don't have to go finding them, they chase you down. So here
Mhm.
comes LL.
But I mean, and I think, and that's and then I've been there since October. We've been doing some really strong work from now and just like really pushing this company forward, this modern media company forward, and this idea of like we're gonna bridge generations. We're gonna build authentic bridges in culture. We're gonna connect the community who grew up with classic hip hop and feed them with a brand that kind of like is built from the culture.
Yeah.
We're also going to build authentic bridges. I call it putting a little cheese on that broccoli for the younger generation who kind of like has never listened to linear television, who doesn't listen to linear radio, but likes to discover and pick and choose and kind of like, I'll pick a little bit of this plate, but I'll also go way back over here.
Right.
I'll pick a little bit of this here. We're going to super serve the children of Gen X oftentimes who kind of like who love elements of hip hop but are yet to fully discover the entire mythology behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what I get excited about. I get to wake up every morning and build a company that's goal is to elevate classic hip hop and hip hop
That's
culture.
fantastic. Now, we have been speaking very theoretically to some people on this brand level and marketing and all of that. Tell everybody exactly what Rock the Bells is.
Yep. Yeah. So Rock the Bells is a modern media company that there's three pillars of content, commerce, and experiences. So we create content that's elevated around hip hop culture. We have a store on rockthebells.com. That we'll look to build out and continue to develop, and then we'll have experiences coming up in the near future where you'll be able to actually go out and experience those low barrier moments we talked about earlier, and kind of really experience what the best of Rock the Bells and what actually building bridges and culture actually means.
Wow. And on the content side, it looks like you have some editorial on the site.
Oh yeah, so we launched we just launched in the middle of COVID. So right, so this company
Yeah.
launched in June, May June 2020. So we just launched that kind of the MVP. We're getting things moving, going the right direction. We started with written editorial, but you'll see some amazing videos that we have in the hopper, and we'll get to written and video in short order. But like just delivering all types of breakthrough content that live up to this idea of elevating classic hip hop to a modern lens.
That's wonderful. So how close is LL to the business? Do you talk to him often? Is he as kind of like I'm the owner, but you're running this thing? How does it work?
No, super hands on. He's one of the smartest and compassionate and passionate and like business people and icon I've ever met.
Yeah.
So just like he runs the company the day to day. He is
Wow.
completely involved at the same time of whether he's filming a show or doing whatever he still continues to work on, which is important for us at Rock the Bells as well. But he's very hands on. Speak
Yeah.
to him almost every day. We have conversations and he's one of the most creative business people that I've ever met, and I learned something every day.
Wow. I've never met LL. I've had the privilege of meeting some other hip hop legends, but he's one that I've always said, you know what? He seems to be exactly the way he presents.
There's no inauthentic bone in his body.
Yeah.
He is exactly who he says he is. He is exactly as advertised. He believes in treating people the right way. He believes in doing things the right way. He demands excellence. Um,
He's a family man.
the family, yeah, incredibly, but like freakishly smart too.
Yeah.
Just a great human being, which goes back to what I said before. It's like this idea that you can't, be a great human being, do things the right way, and be successful is this myth.
Yeah, it's a lie.
It's one of those corporate myths of like you need to pretend to be someone else.
Yeah.
When I first got my job back in the day, I came to work and I had my music a little loud. They're like, you can't put your music that loud like that. I was like, but I was like, well, I'm going to do that anyway. Like, it's all right. I'll be all right. And then come to find out, some of the leaders in the company is like, oh, what are you playing? Like,
Right.
there's this thought oftentimes that, people of color have to shrink themselves or be someone who they're not.
Yeah.
And what I would say loudly and proclaiming, I know you would agree, is like, no, be your whole authentic
Oh,
self,
totally.
and like, never be scared, or never kind of like, make yourself smaller than you are. Like, live that greatness. And I feel like, the company that, L Cool J lives that, I believe the same thing. And I think that's why it's working together, working well right now. And that's why it's going to work in the future.
Fantastic. So what's coming up that you can talk about that maybe we should be on the lookout for?
I would say this, there's, I don't talk about a ton of things that are coming up, but I will say I would be on the lookout for consistent, amazing new news on the commerce business. So like
Okay.
each week you should see a really dope drop or something creative on rockthebells.com. Check it out. Check it out. And there'll be something for you to purchase. There'll be some great short, medium, and long form content.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start seeing kind of like branded with Rock the Bells that we'll be producing, that'll be coming, and there'll be a breakthrough experience in short order.
That's
We're,
awesome.
we're finalizing right now, so you can. And there's an announcement coming probably on Friday.
Oh,
I would say, if you mark your calendars, there might be
no,
something.
no little scoop here for the Culture Soup podcast.
I cannot
No,
give
no
a scoop
exclusive
here.
that you can just
I
boop like
cannot give a
that.
scoop. I just gave you the scoop. The scoop is that there's a scoop coming.
That something's coming Friday.
But just good things all around happening, and we'll continue to push the culture forward, and do right by it, because in the middle of everything we do is love.
Oh,
We
I
love
love
this
that.
culture,
That's good.
and we will do everything in our power, to treat it right, and to keep it at the center of the core of everything we do.
That is awesome. So rockthebells.com. Can we follow you on social yet?
You can, sure, you can follow, yeah, James Cuthbert on Instagram. You can follow me. I am probably like, I need like a social media coordinator for myself, because I am not that good at coordinating. But what's even more important, I would say, is go out and follow Rock the Bells
Yeah.
on our social handles. You'll see some really cool stuff coming through.
Fantastic. James, it's so great to reconnect with you. Let's not make this the last time. I mean, I was seeing you like monthly at some point. We were on the road like crazy. I don't know how you were doing it though, because you were traveling all over the place for your job. I was too. So anyway, yeah, we were really doing it back then.
We're doing a lot. Like I still do a lot, but at least I can do a lot from my house, for now. What I would say is, be blessed in everything you're doing. Like, you're doing really impactful, powerful work.
Thank you.
Even I know there's a grind day to day, especially when doing a podcast, but like, people are listening, and people are learning and growing. And and I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. All the best to you. And please send LL all of our love.
Okay. We'll do 100%. God bless you guys. Take care. Cheers.
God bless. Bye bye. Now,
Yeah, I mean, well, and you think about it, just this idea. Think about hip hop culture, and you think about any culture, over the course of time. You really go back. You have culture has their language.
Yeah.
Hip hop has a language. Culture has their dance.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop has break. Culture has their storytelling. They have the MC.
Yeah.
Culture has their celebration. Think about the DJ.
And you sound like a
culture has
preacher
their
right
art.
now. Call
They
and
have their
response.
artwork, and you have graffiti art that
Yeah.
kind of like has grown up. And Basquiat had the top selling piece of art, in all of North America.
Mm-hmm.
All the elements that go into hip hop are just the same elements that go into any culture.
Yes.
And I think it just took time for the world to realize, like, okay, this is a real culture. These are really authentic voices that matter. And they're very innovative, and they're progressively pushing the culture forward.
Y'all, don't you see why this is my brother in culture? Because we speak the same language. I am like encouraged and inspired to spit out that one line that I did in so many of my speeches. Culture's that thing that makes your squad a squad.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like, if you think about like even how you communicate, the offhand, and kind of like, and just leveraging, whether it's leveraging an emoji or leveraging kind of like an icon, or finding pictures that kind of like live within culture. Like, man, it's that connective tissue that allows you to be your authentic self. It's what allows you to connect to friends and networks, especially at times like these, where people have kind of been stuck inside, and I can't go hang out with a big group of my friends. Like, those messages and those colloquialisms are kind of like what reminds me of like that I still have my network, and they're still standing by me.
Absolutely. So how close is LL to the business? Do you talk to him often? Is he as kind of like, I'm the owner, but you're running this thing? How does it work?
No, super hands-on. He's one of the smartest, and compassionate and and passionate and like business people and icon I've ever met.
Yeah.
So just like he runs the company the day to day. He is
Wow.
completely involved. At the same time of whether he's filming a show or doing whatever he still continues to work on, which is important for us at Rock the Bells as well. But he's very hands on.
Yeah.
Speaks to him almost every day. We have conversations and he's one of the most creative business people that I've ever met, and I learned something every day.
The Culture Soup Podcast is a production of No Size Communication, LLC.